Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of Your Alright Power Session. I'm your host, Darian and Ray.
And I'm Ray Clark, and today we have a reoccurring guest, Stephanie Bradley Blue, and we also have Beverly Johnson. We're going to be talking about the positive mindset and how it's critical in most situations that all of us are dealing with today. And we have, a lot that we're going to be covering. I'm going to start with you, Stephanie, because you've been here before. The audience is familiar with you. We're going to let you lead it off.
Hey guys, I'm excited to be back with you guys today. Thanks for having me. We're just in such an interesting time, Anywhere you go, people are really experiencing a lot of hopelessness and sadness. I was talking to a younger female friend of mine, and she was saying, I don't know if I want to bring children into this world because it doesn't seem like things are getting better. And so with that, even the most positive people, even the people who that we often look to as our heroes or our mentors or our icons, are dealing with such pressures that it's difficult for them to, extend that positivity or even find their way out of their own sadness. And so and I find it across the board, people having mental health struggles and people just throughout everyday life. And so one of the people that I lean on all the time when I'm having my own personal struggles, and I call her my personal positive coach, is a close friend of mine, is this lady sitting right next to me. So because she just has a way of being able to teach you tools and give you information and just say the right thing to kind of help you readjust your thinking and move in a different direction and incorporate actual things in your life. Like, she is accountable. That accountability is so important, to incorporate things in your life to help you to think differently and move differently.
We've expounded previously on other shows what your credentials are. Go ahead, Beverly, and let the folks know what your background is.
Okay, I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Virginia. Specialize in trauma and substance abuse and things of that nature. So one of my specialties is helping people think more positive. I mean, this day and age, I always think of what my mom said, birds of a feather flock together. So then to bounce off of what Stephanie was saying with the support is huge. We're not any one man or one woman on an island. So it's never been so crucial in this day and age than to just grasp onto that positive thinking. How much more is going to lead us. Because just about any situation, you can find the positive aspect of it. Just about anything. And even when it comes to some of the hard topics or situations, I rely on my spirituality. That's something that kind of keeps me. So even me, I'm just a vessel here to try and help someone else. So it's definitely not me. The Lord is just using me. I'm doing prayers in the morning, listening to some gospel music. I bring the physical aspect into things. I go for a 2-mile jog, 3-mile jog, all of those are kind of clear my head because I'm not sure what I'm going to run into. Even with my colleagues, they're going through something. Somebody, I could be on the highway and they could have had a bad day, arguing with their spouse. So I have to be whole. So it's more so the buzzword everybody says now, self-care. So, starting off with self-care helps you to develop that positivity, to keep you right in a sense, just to start off.
Mm-hmm.
What type of advice do you give the person who says, that's all right for you, but it's hard for me? Like, some people say it's easier said than done, and I know that they'll look at you and say, I can't do what you do. I just not built like that. What's your advice for those people, just on how to really keep that positive mindset?
I know as far as me, what I do, and that's why I try and keep it simple for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the 2 to 3 mile jog. You don't have to have a gym membership, any type of money or anything like that. Sometimes just journaling, the gratitude journal, just gets people in a positive mindset. Mm-hmm. So it's a mindset shift. And it's not, easy to do. So it is easier, said than done, but you have to get into the routine. You have to change that negative thought pattern. Because us as humans, we're programmed to automatically seek the negative bias. So you have to intentionally work to kind of transform your brain into thinking more positive. Or if you have a negative thought, one thing I do a lot of times too, what's the positive of that? What's the reverse of that?
There you go.
What else can happen besides that? Or maybe what's the result of me going through that? What's the positive that I can pull from that? Is it to make me stronger? Is it to help me help someone else? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where that spirituality comes into play as well. There's a higher purpose for any and everything that gets done. So,
how often do you run into people where you may need to advise them to change the company they keep and the surroundings that they allow themselves in? Because we've all been in situations where you may start off very positive, and you may start off with the best of intentions, but you are sometimes swayed or pulled down a path that's not as positive by just the company you're keeping, the individuals you allow to influence you. Especially, I find this when I'm talking to my 20-year-old daughter.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, so it's like, what kind of advice do you give to these people who are so intertwined with maybe negative energy that they don't even identify as negative? They only see it as something that they think they need.
A lot of times I'll say, okay, you know, well, what are your goals? What are you talking about? Conversations. If you're not talking about something positive, that automatically changes the game, so to speak. So let's talk about goals, or let's talk about, you know, how do we get there? So if they're not helping you, then what's the purpose of them in your life? It's kind of what obviously I don't tell anyone to stop hanging with anyone, because that's never going to work when you tell anybody anything. But just, you know,
I will.
People usually don't receive that. You know, you're telling them something. So it's just the point of, you know, are you advancing by being around this person? Which,
there you go.
If it's not harming, if it's not helping you, rather than what's the purpose?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Some people are in your life for a season. Some
Facts.
people are meant, you know, be in your life for forever. So
Facts.
everyone isn't like that. So is it helping you?
I just to hit on something he said that's important too, even go back to what you were talking about earlier. What do you do when a person says, I'm just not built like that? A lot of times with people, it comes to times when they really just feel defeated. And part of, I think, helping people identify, or this is where therapy comes into play, or you may need to speak to somebody professional, because when you get in those mindsets and they become locked in, and it becomes defeatism, it takes skill to help people gain awareness and insight.
Right. Okay.
So I would suggest to those persons, if you are in that space and you're not moving forward, you might need to find a life coach. You might need to find therapy. You might need to go talk to your pastor or your imam or whatever you ascribe to, because it's going to take another level of wisdom to unlock or to unleash some insight. Most of the time when people are stuck in a space, is a lack of insight. So whether it's not being able to see the kind of people that they're around and the energy that is bringing into their lives, or giving into being defeated and saying, I'm just not able or incapable of doing that, there's a lack of awareness, something about themselves they've forgotten. And I can only speak to that because I've had those moments in my life. Like, I don't care how many places I've been, how wonderful certain parts of my life have been. When you fall into a place of defeatism, because she was just telling me this the other day, you begin to catastrophize. So even when you see, you know you can be successful, the only thing you can experience internally is the defeat of that, the feeling of, if I'm not, I'm going to feel this way.
So that's pretty much like changing your viewpoint on something. Instead of saying, I have to be perfect, say, I have a new challenge ahead of me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we'll see how that goes on the end. Everything you go through, it's not going to do nothing but make you stronger anyway. And we'll get regards to back to what you're saying about being around negative people, you know, that's draining. You know, so I say stay away from the negative people. For real, you have to put yourself around positive people, like minds, people who think like you. You know, so when you're around that negativity, it's more draining. When you let that person at work get to you, they're not bothered. You are. You're taking that home. You're bringing that to your next day. And what we talk about at night, we used to always say in resiliency, do that brain dump at night. So in the next day, when you wake up in the morning, it's a new day. You're not bringing that negativity from one day to another.
It's critical to learn early in life, I think, when you are around people who aren't for your betterment, because then you wind up getting into these situations where maybe you marry the wrong individual, and now your negative energy is underneath the same roof as you, and it's not as easy to untangle or untether yourself from that when you are intertwined in every way possible.
That's why they came in with divorce.
Right, so it's like,
go ahead.
Right, so then it's like, right, so it's like, you know, it's harder in certain situations, easier said than done.
Right.
Entanglement.
Right.
I think that's the thing of
But
it.
not that Jada Pinkett Smith.
This is the real meaning of entanglement. But go ahead.
Right, so, and the energy thing you were talking about, what happens a lot of times is we are beings, spiritual beings, And that energy is real. Like everything in our bodies vibrates at a particular level, and it puts off energy. And when we are, it's interesting, and I could be, not to be extremely philosophical about it, but when the whole world is in distress, and we're all operating out of this place of just like not knowing,
Right.
you know,
COVID.
despair, right, all of that. An entire world was put in a traumatic situation. And so it shifts, to me, the internal energy of things. And so it takes time to kind of figure that out, and it takes a level, like I said, of awareness and insight. And I think that that's something that most people, we assume, and what's hard for us, right, a lot of times, because we're motivators, we're people that talk to people all the time, we have some sense of empathy for others.
Right.
What's hard for us is we assume that everybody else has that too.
And they don't.
And
Okay.
they don't.
They don't.
And they really, really don't. And so the difficulty then becomes, as a helper, or as a person who's called to kind of help and support those people, is figuring out, you know, ways to communicate the message without offending and all those kinds of things. And so that's
Which I've had to work on
yeah.
so much.
And sometimes we're not the ones that can do it. Everybody's not your assignment. We're not the person that can do it.
Exactly. And stop expecting you out of other people.
Right.
You know what you would do.
Right.
You know, you're the person who's gonna, if they call, you're gonna stop everything you're doing and go help that person out.
Right.
But they're not gonna do that for you, and then you get all upset and in your feelings. Accept them for who they are.
Right.
You know?
That's very hard for people to accept people
For-
for who they
Yes.
are. I tell both of my children, I say, when, we've all heard this, when someone shows you who they are,
Believe it.
believe them.
There you go.
But a lot of times, and this is not to, I don't want to sound sexist at all, but a lot of times with the younger female mind, they're not believing who these young men are showing them they are. And they think, well, it's almost like, if I do this, this, and this, it'll be good. Whereas guys, we don't do that. We go out and say, that's what I want, don't change. It's good now.
Right.
A woman will say, I hope it changes and grows and matures. A guy will say, this is just right, don't ever change.
Right.
And that's not, neither of those are realistic.
No, they're not.
And I know I'm making it a little bit personal because I have a 20-year-old daughter.
But let me just help you with that though. It's not just a young female mindset. It's just in general, like people who are fixers think that way. People who want
Right.
Yes, they
just
think
think that way
The
in
lost
general,
puppy,
like,
Yeah.
you see him, you want to make him better, you want to clean it up.
And let's be honest. It started from youth, yo.
Yeah.
When you actually think about it, it started from a child. Sometimes that young boy who was the only child and single mom.
Right.
So he took care of his mom the whole time. She took care of him, but also he was with her when daddy did wrong, baby, and then he ain't no baby. Then now rescued her, and then he going up. Now his thing is to rescue that young lady, or that woman who did the same thing for her mom, for her father, for her brother, whatever things may be. She's always been that person that they leaned on. So now she's going through saying, "Oh, I got you. I can help you too." So sometimes it starts. Well, a lot of the time it starts from you. Yeah.
And we went on a slight tangent from a positive mindset.
Yes. Yes. Let's get back
around.
It's still in the vein of what we're talking
Yes.
about, because it's about being influenced, your energy being influenced by external things other than yourself. So, we just have to all be leery about, even your loved ones can be the ones that are dragging you down at times, and you have to be able to see it.
Yeah.
Definitely. I
Take
think so.
take control of your life, because I say think of your mind, your body as a tank of gas, and of negativity and positivity, and what you allow in it and don't allow is your choice. So a lot of time, ain't no lies. Every time when you feel that way, that's your fault. You gotta take ownership of it.
I'm gonna throw this question to the ladies. What do you come across in counseling sessions where you may be dealing with children and you clearly see that what's bringing this child down may be who's supposed to be protecting them and taking care of them? The parent's energy is what's going to dictate the household. The parent's energy is what's going to dictate the energy of the family.
Right.
And we all know if mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy.
Ain't nobody happy.
So what have you come across in talking with people where, wow, maybe the issue is not the kid?
For me, one thing, and it can go to the adults or the children, like what you're saying, the managing your expectations. A lot of times as parents, we have this vision for our child, because I have a 19-year-old, like, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do this, and then when they fall short of your expectation, then you have the anxiety that sits in, potentially the anger, then potentially that could lead to the depression.
Right.
So with any close person, manage your expectations. What you do is gonna be different than this other person's life.
Right.
You can plant the seeds and put the groundwork and framework, but everybody has the choice to do and live how they see
It's
fit.
so hard.
Exactly.
And to your question, even more, empowerment. You have to learn how to meet people where they are
There you go.
and empower them from that place.
There you go. I like
So,
that.
Even as the person that's come into my office, if I have a young person, and even with my own children, having to go back and admit things that I didn't quite do right, how it must have impacted them. But to speak to them and say to them and empower them that in those moments when I was not at my best, this is who you were outside of me. And you have to be able to pull the best parts of that. What did you learn? What was the best part of that experience for you to learn from that and implement and grow? Or you can stay in the space of dwelling in the negative, which oftentimes people do, right? And only want to see things from that perspective. It's going to keep you hindered. So it's giving them direction and empowering them to take control of their thinking and flip the script and look at it differently, because none of us have been perfect parents. And so all of our children have probably experienced something with us that we are completely unaware of,
Right.
that has impacted them in a negative way, right? But it's empowering that child to say, your parents aren't perfect people. You can either look at it and be angry and hold on to the resentment, or you can flip that thing and say, look at how I've grown. Because I'm not the mother that I was when I was 22.
Right.
So how did I get there? What did you see me do? And even if you can't acknowledge that to me, pull into yourself the best parts of that and empower them to do that. And a lot of times too, it's in going back and taking responsibility for where you aren't being the best parent.
I think of forgiveness when you think of that. A lot of time parents reflect, let's say 5 years, 10 years down the road and say, wow, I should have did this, I should have did that. But genuinely at that time, I believe everyone does the best that they can with the tools that they have. So I don't believe anyone wakes up, oh, I'm gonna be a bad parent, horrible parent, or make these negative choices. But, sometimes things just happen. So just realizing that, I did the best at that time, at that moment, with the tools I was working with. But now I'm moving forward. So, we can go from there and learn and grow. And I think acceptance and maybe having that conversation with the youth, so that way it puts it more on a different playing field. Yes,
Right.
I'm not perfect.
Right.
I'm mommy and dad or daddy and you have me on this pedestal. I've made mistakes, but at that time I wasn't trying to make a mistake. I was just doing the best I can, and now we can move forward. I know that hurt you. I'm sorry, and let's move forward and grow from there. And education is a lot of things, psychoeducation, letting the parents know where a kid or child or young adult should be at a certain point in time.
Right.
Because a lot of times parents don't know. They expect this or expect that because they're watching TV or whatever. And developmentally, everyone isn't the same. at
Exactly.
the
Just
same
because your
time.
kid is
It's based on
16 don't
age.
mean they should be driving.
Exactly.
You know, yeah,
100%.
Yes, or just because they're 18 doesn't
Maturity
mean
and
they
age.
should buy an AR.
In facts.
Right.
Facts. That's another one. Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
I think even to just about positive thinking and positive mindsets, it's really, really important to understand that we don't always, it's a process. I tell the story of the 3 little pigs sometimes to my clients, and I use it as a means of giving people clarity about you don't always have the tools. But you're no different than anybody else. Life comes up, the big bad wolf is blowing all the time. He always blowing on somebody's house. Determination for most people is, what is your house made of? Right? You don't always have the tools.
Yeah.
Whether it was environment, parenting, financial, whatever. If all you had was to be able to build a straw house, that's what you got, is straw house coping skills, straw house mentality, straw house tools. That's not about fault. That's not about shame or guilt. When Big Bad Wolf comes along to blow, that's not going to stand. The issue then is, what do you do next? Do you go to the pig next door and say, teach me how to build a house with wood? Or do you stay stuck?
I like that. I wanna talk about that a little bit more, because it goes back to who you surround yourself with.
Facts.
You know, and being open to learning from people who are doing things in a healthier way or a better way. If you don't surround yourself, like me, I believe in mentorship. None of us can get to where we want to be if we haven't seen it.
Facts.
So you have to see it and then try to emulate it or make another version of it that is your own. And oftentimes, we don't do enough mentorship in our community and reach back out, because we know there's a lot of single moms. But how many of us are willing to talk to that young man who doesn't have a father in the house, and it's not your son? You know, we have to do these things.
And you don't want anything else in return.
How many
That's it.
how many young
Except for him
boys
to be
would love to
successful.
learn how to start their own podcast?
Right. Facts.
You know, I'm going on somewhat of a tangent, but it's back to just, you can't do it alone, and it really does take a village.
It does.
And there's times, like you said, we've all not been the perfect parent, but maybe we didn't have an example at certain times to know what to do when we hit that point in our life. You know, it's just very helpful to have good people around you. And some of these kids, unfortunately, we see situations where the parents are the main ones messing the kid up, and it isn't even the external world. So teen pregnancy plays a role, just being too young when you become a parent, not having both parents there. There's so many variables, but it's when you're in that situation as a child, it's not your fault. You're 1000% dependent upon the adults in your life to provide that safe space and to give you the correct influences. Some of these kids are raising themselves.
I think something she said earlier, and I kind of wanted to ask her too, when you were talking about it, and I said to you about being accountable, that provides the accountability piece. And just to kind of like touch bases real quick with what do we, like how do we, what are some tools, what are some things we tell people, hey, these are the areas that we need to be aware of in order to bring ourselves into a place of better thinking and more positive thinking. And a mindset of change, a thought process of change.
One of the things I like to kind of get people to think about is their potential adversities, you know, being a parent. So what shaped and molded you to react that way? You know, a lot of parents, people think they're superwomen or superman, but you may have been in an abusive household. So
Right.
you don't know how to deal with it. You may have had somebody talk negative to you. So
Right.
now how are you going to talk positive to your child? You know, your surroundings may not have been that support for you as well. You know, may have been involved with people that's incarcerated, all those, you know, adversities that shape and mold your mindset. So that's where the support's from on the outside, like, hey, you know, can you take a look at it this way, or have you tried this? But that's when an uncle or auntie, everybody else can come in and rally on. So even though that adult has had all those negative adverse experiences, hopefully the village can kind of come in and see and say, okay, so to get the adult to visualize it, okay, yeah, I have been through a lot. So obviously this is going to impact me. You know, so to get their self-awareness, and then maybe they can kind of shift their mindset a little bit. Maybe this isn't the only way I can, you know, punish this person.
Right.
Eating may not work for everyone. You know what I mean? But if that's what you're seeing, or you was beat as a child, then you have no other thing. So that self-awareness piece is huge, getting them to see. That way they can make the shift and the change, the generational curse. They can change the generational curse. If you only graduated high school, then you may only require your son to graduate high school, or your daughter to graduate high school. But you have to realize, like, whoa, where is this thinking pattern coming from? So then once you realize it, you can start to shift a little bit your thinking pattern.
Yeah, because there's families that are used to having somebody who gets incarcerated.
Exactly.
That's just like, well, yeah, my uncle got locked up for hustling, or so-and-so got locked up. It's like becomes acceptable.
Yeah, it's no big deal,
It almost
right?
becomes in certain areas
Exactly.
a rite of passage.
Yeah, I've seen it. You've seen it. I've seen people say, you know, Alcoholism runs in my family. And my granddaddy was one. My daddy was one. My uncles were one. My son is one. So it just went, no, you can stop it if you choose to.
Yeah.
You know, you can. And that's why we talk about, when we wrote about what I said about this is what goes in and out of your mind, your day. That's you. You know what I'm saying? You control your fate. You know what I'm saying? So if something is going on, you don't have to dwell on that negativity. You don't have to walk around pouting and holding grudges. You're only hurting yourself further. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Release it, because the other person, believe me, they're around skipping and ain't thinking about you. They ain't skipping about you, but you're sitting at home mad. You mad at midnight. You mad the next day.
They moved on.
They moved on. The next day they saying, "What's up, man?" And you're like, ah. So slept with
it all day long.
Yeah. Let it go, brother. Let it go. It's and move on. And peace of mind is everything.
It is.
Peace of mind is everything.
That's where it starts.
That's what it goes. That's it.
Being kind to yourself and choosing peace.
Yeah. Back in the days, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Back in the days, our parents was on nice house, nice car for success. Nowadays, we're on and we're teaching our kids peace of mind is success. Hey, I ain't got time for that negativity. Whatever, go over there with that. I'm trying to have nothing but smiles around me, peace, whatever. I don't care how that look. I'm just trying to be me and whatever that looks like. You know, and that's what goes on nowadays. And that's peace of mind. Being conscious of what's going on. Some people are unconscious of what they got going on with themselves, what that negativity is doing to them, what that grudge holding is doing to them, what keeping them, the wrong crowd around them is doing to you. You're unconscious of it, but once you become conscious of it, then and you take control of it, then you realize, wow, I can win. I can be a better person. I can move further in life, and that's what the verses of being unconscious and conscious is. Be more conscious with your positivity.
And in summary, I'm going to give the last word to our panel.
Yes, sir.
But energy is something that never dies. It just recycles itself. So even when we die and we become dust, that dust can feed a plant and it can grow into becoming something else. Be mindful of what you allow in your space. Be mindful of who you allow into your life. And if you have someone in your life that has to be in your life, well, because it's your child, it's your mom, then be conscious of how you interact with them, and don't, negativity begets negativity.
There you go.
I'm going to throw it to the
It's
ladies.
infectious.
And then
It's
I'm going to throw it to you guys to summarize it, and then we want to be mindful of the time. But thank you so much for showing up. Let them know how you'd like to close out, ladies.
I'm going to let you close out. I'm just going to say this. Be kind to yourself, as people just in general. Learn to be kind to yourself wherever you are, at whatever stage you're in your thought process. First, learn to be kind to yourself. Find a space of peace and learn how to protect it. And seek help. If you're in a place where it's cyclical and you can't get out on your own, find someone to support, speak to, and give you tools to help you get where you need to be.
Okay. One thing I'd say is basic building blocks. Food. What are you taking in your body? Food is a direct reflection of your mood. So if you already, didn't eat breakfast or lunch, you're already operating on a negative tank to deal with all the potential negativities in the world. Sleeping, physical activity. Even if you don't work out, walking, the air, being outside. So these are all basic things that everyone can do. The sunlight, go out and take it in. So these are basic things to prepare your mind for all the potential negativity you're going to run into. And just keep in mind, what is of the world doesn't have to be what's in your mind.
Say that one more time. Say that one more
What's
time.
of the world does not have to be what's in your mind.
There you go.
You control that, and for all intents purposes, don't let anyone be your puppet master. You don't want them to control your energy or how you move this way because they're having a bad day. Take control of your peace and don't let them be your puppet master.
Hey. She said it, and as always, it's about the community.
Always. So thank you again for joining us today on the You Are Right Power Session, and thank you, ladies, for showing up.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Until we meet again.
Enjoy your day. Peace.
Thank you.